If you've listened to my show, in fact, if you've been on the internet, on social media, on TV, if you look through a magazine, if you've heard anything in the news, everybody's talking about diabetes. Everybody's talking about weight. Everybody's talking about GLP-1 receptor agonists, all these medications that people are using to lose weight. For the first time in a long time, we finally have something that gives people hope of improving their metabolic disease. That's right. Finally, we have something that's working. Finally, we have something that is working across the board. So it almost doesn't matter who you talk to. If someone is on a GLP-1 receptor agonist, if they are able to tolerate it, then they're losing weight. And that is having ramifications across the board in our metabolic health. And we're going to talk today about metabolic disease and what it is, how the body works, and what you can do about it. Hey, if you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new you. I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to put their diabetes in remission, who want to improve their metabolic health, in fact, who want to reverse their diabetes. If you're new to me, go ahead and put new in the comments in the chat because I'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and some music and let you know that I'm happy that you're here. If you are new and you have a question, go ahead and put that question in the comments as well. Make sure you put a Q in front of it so that I can look for that, search it among the comments, and I'll be able to answer that. I've got, like we normally do, I've got my monitors over here that we're going to take a look at here in just a little while. And right below, you see that's my Dexcom Clarity Report that we'll take a look and see what's been going on with my blood sugars as we move throughout this space. If you've not already done so, make sure you get over to our website. Make sure you get over to our YouTube channel because there is a lot of information that's out there. We have several playlists that I want you to make sure that you're getting through. One of them is called Mastering Diabetes, and then How to Reverse Diabetes, and then of course our show and our series on fasting, how to fast successfully. I'll pull those up here in a little while so we can take a look at them. So we'll take a look at that. But before we do that, I do want to hop over and I do see several of our community members that are out there. I want to say hello to you. So let's go ahead and let's take a look here. So I see Lightworks. Lightworks is saying, hey, Cornelia. Hey, Lightworks, how are you doing? He said, Julian, why are you anxious when you don't eat? That's a good question. Hopefully Julian will join us. Pamela says, hello all. Lightworks is saying, hi Pam. And Cornelia, hi Lightworks, awesome work managing your blood. You as well, Steve. All right, so Cornelia, thank you for stopping through. And then of course Teresa saying, hey doctor and everyone. Steve says, old Steve is having problems right now. I've been changing and eliminating, trying to right the ship. Steve, thank you for sharing. Man, perhaps we need to just stop right there and just deal with some of these questions and things that are coming up. Pamela says, hi Lightworks. Steve said, weight is good. Lightworks said, you can right the ship, Steve. And I think, yeah, why don't we do that right now? So for you, Steve, and for everyone that's out there, let me come over here. For everyone that's out there, I want to, and I think I've given you this kind of scenario before, but let me give it to you again because I want you to really dig into this, okay? And often I hear people say things like, I fell off the bandwagon, I got off track, I'm off the reservation, okay? And all those are things that we say. And I give them this little snippet, right? And I'm a big Western. I like Westerns. I grew up, my dad used to watch them, things like Bonanza and Big Valley and Gunsmoke. And anyway, so all those things, those kind of old movies. And I don't think I've ever seen this in a movie, but I imagine a little kid on the back of a chuck wagon. They're going across the city, across the country, and they're going out homesteading. And the wagon is going, and all the adults are in the front, and the kid's on the back having a good time. And it hits a bump, and the kid falls off. And nobody realizes that he's fallen off. And for the rest of the movie, you see the kid, running behind the wagon trying to catch up. And every time, just as he goes to catch up, then he misses and the wagon moves over and goes over a hill. And so for the rest of the movie, he's running behind the wagon. And that is the idea, that is the vision that often people have in their minds, and often the way we feel. And when I say we, I'm adding myself in there, Steve. We feel like we've messed up, we've gotten off track, right? But I want to give you all a different visual. Same movie, same kid. And now I want you to put yourself in that movie. And you're on a stagecoach with the kid. And you guys pull into a town. And in the town, you look out and you say to yourself, hey, this is a good town. And you get off of the stagecoach. And you hang around the town for a while. And then when you are ready, when the stagecoach comes tomorrow or the day after, or maybe, in the Old West, it used to come once a week. When the stagecoach comes, you decide, I've had enough time in this town. I'm getting back on the stagecoach. Yeah? And then you go on your way. The first scenario that I give you with the kids chasing after the wagon, very disempowering. Because it's not under your control. Very disempowering because somebody else is controlling it. And you slipped, you fell off by accident. But in the second scenario, you decided that you're getting off. And I want to convince us all, as we're moving through this space, that being off of a plan, being off of fasting, being off of your meal plan, being off of New Year, New You even, it's a choice that we make, and it's a choice that we make to get back on. And so there's no judgment. There is no self-incrimination. There is no self-beating up, right? It is that I made a decision, for whatever reason, to get off because I'm an adult and I decided to do that. And then I make a decision that I'm getting back on. Okay? It gives you the power. It takes away the guilt and the shame. It takes away all that stuff because now you're in control. And you may decide that you're going to eat something that's not on the plan. Hey, guess what? Thanksgiving's coming. We're doing a show, I think next week is our Thanksgiving show. We're going to talk a little bit about this. But we'll spend more time talking about that. But I just want to make sure I address that because that's a big issue for all of us. Me included. Right? Because it's not uncommon to do something and then for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days, 10 days, maybe a week or 2 weeks, that we're in our heads trying to right it because we fell off. But I don't want you to fall off. I just want to make a decision to get off when you want and then get back on. All right? Awesome. So I hope I'm having I hope that was not part of the show, but it is part of the show because that's what we do. Right? When the community needs something, that's what we do. Let's see. Cornelia said, thank you, doctor. I'm so glad to be able to join the show tonight. Steve said, I'm having issues with my blood glucose over 200 in the middle of the fast. I can't figure out what's going on. I have another health issue randomly is the other thing I can think of that would do it, that would cause it. Yes. And one of the points that we'll make here in tonight's discussion is that there are things that, I'll say a domino effect. So one thing can affect another, can affect another, can affect another. And yeah, you may find that that's the case. And if that's the case, we continue doing the things that we know. Because remember, the reason we don't succeed is not because we don't have a desire, not because we don't have drive, not because we don't have know-how. We don't succeed because we don't have structure. when my son several years ago, he was on the basketball team, and they got up, and they were not doing well in the game, and so the coach pulled him aside, and he said to them, "What I'm gonna say to you right now: keep working the plan, do the fundamentals. If you work the fundamentals, whatever's going on, once it's righted, the fundamentals are still there, and they will pick up and they will help you compensate for it, right? So keep doing the fundamentals, the things that we know. All right. Okay, so let's hop over and let's take a look. Blood sugars. Let's start there. Blood sugars, and this is what my blood sugar is right now. That is my Freestyle Libre 3. And if I hop over and I look at my Dexcom, see my Dexcom also is 127. And you'll see right here, we got up to about, what's that, 170. That was, let's see, what time was that? So here's lunch, right? And so for lunch, what did I have? Oh, I had broccoli bisque and a couple of meatballs. And I think I told you guys I was doing a shake. All right, so right there, I have to believe that that's the broccoli bisque. Because it's very creamy. It was delicious. I got it from the cafeteria. So look at that. Up to, what was that one? It came from about 80. And then got up to about 157. Then came back down. And then I did for the rest of the evening. And then on the way home, I decided that I was going to have, what did I have? A slice of pizza. Look at that. So we got up to was the highest, 174. And then back down, and where we are right now. Okay? So that's where we are. Let's take a look at my Keto Mojo. And I'm not fasting, so we stopped fasting on Friday. You guys saw that show. And let's see what we're going to be right now. What do you think my ketones are? I'm going to guess 0. I think last week Steve almost got it. He said 0.1. Okay, and so here is my, this is my Keto Mojo with my strip. And then let's go ahead and open up this one as well, because I don't want to stick myself, but I'm going to leave this one off to the side. Let's go over here. Yeah, I'll leave these off to the side. Right there. And let's grab one of these Lancets. And we'll see. And I love showing the different monitors, because I can't tell you the number of people that will ask me about differences in monitors and whether this one is accurate or that one is accurate, or there's something wrong with my monitor. There's not anything wrong with your monitor, right? So they can have different numbers. And if you are 134 for the Keto Mojo and 138 for the Contour. And then, of course, let's put this back on the screen. So that's my my Dexcom Clarity, or Dexcom G7. It says 127. Let's go ahead and get this started. This is the ketone strip. Okay, get that one going. And of course, like I always do, I'm going to tease you. And I think I saw Steve put in there 0.2. So we'll keep that in mind, Steve. We'll come back. All right. So let's go ahead and let's hop over and let's have our conversation. So metabolic diseases. Metabolic diseases. You kind of heard me talking at the top of the show about where we are as a country, as a world, really. And I think there are supposed to be some conversations going on between the U.S. Congress and the manufacturers, the pharmaceutical reps, not reps, but the pharmaceutical companies, because there's this huge issue of cost. All right, so your money always comes into play, but a lot of people are getting benefits. In fact, in our community, we're getting benefit. You guys know that I started out using Manjaro back a little over a year ago. well, over a year ago, because I've been off for almost a year now. And so the metabolic benefits that we're getting are incredible, right? So like I said, across the board, almost everybody you talk to who's using these medications, we're finding benefit. Metabolic diseases are diseases that are the source of a lot of our chronic illnesses. And we'll make a distinction between, because there are metabolic disorders that are genetic, and there are, of course, metabolic disorders as we've been talking about. So we'll come to that in a minute. So let's go ahead and let's hop into it. As you have questions, if you have questions as we go through, go ahead and say that. You'll see the blue ribbon there. Let me make just one big plug. November is Diabetes Awareness Month. We started out the series, or started out the conversation last week with a review of diabetes. This is a continuation, if you will, of that, because diabetes is the prototypic metabolic disease. And we're going to get into some other, we'll get into how it works, not necessarily get into others, but how metabolic diseases are working, how the body's functioning. That's our goal tonight. And if you understand this, then you understand a lot of the metabolic diseases that we have and why they are the way they are. Okay. All right. So metabolic disease. So what is metabolism? What is metabolism? Metabolism is the way the body processes food. So after we eat, in the postprandial period, you guys have heard that phrase before, that's the first 6 hours roughly, the body breaks down proteins into amino acids, fats into free fatty acids, and carbohydrates into simple sugar. So what it's doing is it's taking all of the stuff that you eat and it's breaking it down into its component parts so that it can get it ready or use it for energy and for rebuilding and for doing the things that your body needs, right? So your metabolism, what does it do? Your metabolism begins working in utero. That means when you are first conceived, and it never stops for your entire life. That's right. For example, and this is, we're going to switch organs for a minute or switch concepts. So your heart, once your heart starts beating, it never stops beating for the rest of your life, unless it's artificially stopped or something, right? Something happens, right? So that organ is persistently beating. If you live to be 100 years old, it starts from the time that it begins in utero, when all the chambers are formed and your body starts pumping blood. It runs 24 hours a day, 365 days a week, a year, 366 on a leap year, a year, for that entire 100 years that you're alive. And the same thing, your metabolism. When you're sleeping, your metabolism is working. When you're on vacation, your metabolism is working. When you are sick, it's working. When you're not sick, it's working. When you are excited, it's working. When you're sad and depressed, when you're anxious, it's working. Metabolism is always going, and its job is to help you stay alive. And some of the key things that it does, of course, are all the things that we know about: breathing, digesting food, body temperature, weight. And this is just a smattering. This is not even this is not even intended to be a list. It's just some things that it does, right? Think about it in your body, and your metabolism is involved with it. So how does the metabolism work? It's the process that your body uses to convert the food you eat to energy. That's its job. And there are two arms to your metabolism. There's the anabolic arm, and then there's the catabolic arm. The anabolic is all about building and storing. That's why we say that insulin is an anabolic hormone. Insulin is an anabolic hormone. So that when insulin comes out, insulin's job is to take the food that you just ate, when the body breaks it down, and his job is to begin storing that, because it's storing it for later on. Okay, so insulin is a anabolic hormone. Glucagon, on the other hand, is a catabolic hormone, because what this does is it helps you break down the nutrients that have been stored to provide energy that your body needs. So for all the things that we talked about: breathing, moving, coughing, running, jumping, swimming, eating, All right, even as I'm talking right now, right? I use my hands a lot. So metabolism, that the thing that's giving me energy is my metabolism. And there are some people, and you've kind of heard, oh, she has a fast metabolism. This one has a slow metabolism. It just has to do with how your body processes. And when it comes to weight, the studies have shown that it doesn't matter what kind of metabolism you have. Right? I'm like, yeah, are you sure that that was a good study? No. Right? So it doesn't matter whether you have a fast metabolism or slow metabolism. Metabolism, anabolic, building up, catabolic, breaking down. Right? And so, what are metabolic diseases? So, a metabolic disease is when any of the processes that are involved with going from food to energy is disrupted for some reason. Something happened along the line that caused some disruption. And as you might imagine that if that happens, you can have lots of downstream issues. So either you have too much of something or too little of something. For example, and we're going to use this one here. So in diabetes, we have too much sugar, which is a result of having an abnormal metabolism. And we have too much insulin. Right? So either too much or too little. And that is one of the difficulties in when metabolism goes out of control. So what controls metabolism? It is a complex process, and it's controlled by, hey, look at that. Do you guys see that? Hormones, right? Hormones are right there. But also the nervous system and physical activity. All right, so hormones control metabolism. For example, your thyroid. If your thyroid is slow, if your thyroid is low, if you have hypothyroidism, for example, then your metabolism slows down. That means your body is not converting, right, properly. It's not utilizing properly. So people who have the slow metabolism, they put on weight. People who have hyperthyroidism, the other side, where it's too much, they lose weight. One of the things that happens, and I want you to think about this for a second, if everything in your body is slowed down, that means that the processing of insulin in your body has slowed down. So the body doesn't excrete insulin as readily, right? Because the process that gets rid of insulin has slowed. So as a result, insulin stays in your body longer. So people are prone to having more weight gain. They're prone to be more hungry. They're prone to have hypo or low blood sugars, hypoglycemia, because the insulin is still in their body, and that predisposes them to having low blood sugar because the insulin is still working. On the other hand, if you have hyperthyroidism or overactive thyroid, everything is burning up quickly, right? So your insulin that you put in or the insulin that the body makes is going away. And so people tend to have higher blood sugars. They lose weight, right? See all this going on? Now, here's a little caveat in that process, because those people are hungry, just like the people with the hypothyroidism, but they're hungry for a different reason. They're hungry because they're burning up all the calories and they need more food. It's kind of like, have you guys watched any of the superhero movies? You know, The Flash? He's always going, his metabolism is really high, and so he's always eating. Well, that's what's happening in someone who has hyperthyroidism, overactive thyroid. Okay? So hormones control it. The nervous system controls it. Now, we know that, right? Because the nervous system is part of our autonomic and our parasympathetic nervous system. When we get anxious, right, heart rate goes up, right. That is, the signal comes from the nervous system, right. When we talked about the COPE model, clarify, observe, pause. The ability to pause is a parasympathetic nervous system issue. And so if you can pause, what you're doing is you're basically slowing the system down. And that's a parasympathetic. And then, of course, physical activity, right? Physical activity. But there are some other things that can also affect sleep, affect metabolism. Physical activity, of course, we got it there. And then sleep, and then nutrition, nutritional signals. Now, see how that's all coming together? Metabolism, all right? All right. So that's what controls it. What controls metabolism? So what are some metabolic diseases? So this group of diseases, these are genetic disorders. These are things that people can be born with, they develop, but it's in their genes. We're not talking about that group of diseases today. All right, those are things like Gaucher's and hemochromatosis or maple syrup urine disease or mitochondrial disorders, Tay-Sachs, Wilson's disease. Those are not the ones we're talking about. We're talking about the most common non-genetic metabolic disorders. And these are the ones that we know, right? So diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, metabolic syndrome, and MASH, M-A-S-H. Now, you guys have heard me say NASH or NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Well, the NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, has been renamed to MASH to give significance, right? It's a name that now says that, hey, we know that the fatty liver that people are having is directly related to their metabolic disease. So they've renamed it to reflect that it is a component of metabolic disease. All right. So what is metabolic syndrome? Metabolic syndrome is a combination of conditions that has been shown to increase the risk of significant health complications. So they've looked around and said, okay, look, a person who has these kinds of diseases or this complication or this whatever downstream, right? They've developed heart attack, they've developed a stroke, they've developed some other disease down the road. And when we look at all the people who got that disease, when we look back to see what they had this cluster of diseases. And that cluster is what they termed metabolic syndrome. Does that make sense? So down there, they saw a bunch of people who had a bunch of things, a bunch of disease processes. And they started looking back at all the people in that group that developed, for instance, heart disease, or all the people who developed stroke. And when they looked at all those people, they began identifying different clusters of illnesses that those people had. And they say, okay, a person who has this is likely to develop this other thing. So that's how that came about. And so the risk factors that they found was a large waist, high triglycerides, low HDL, high blood pressure, and high fasting glucose. So that is what is termed metabolic syndrome. And you probably have known this by this idea of the apple and the pear shape. The apple and the pear shape. So when we look at the risk factors, the waist size, so 40 inches or more for men and 35 inches or more for women. You guys get a little grace compared to us. Okay? And this is the person who has central obesity, so right around the middle they're big, and the legs are small and the upper part of the body is small, as opposed to a pear where it's kind of the hips are big. Right? So the apple shape is where the big problem is. Okay? Blood pressure of 130/80 is considered part of the metabolic syndrome. A normal blood pressure is 120/70. Right? Well, 120/80, depending on who you talk to. Blood sugars. If your blood sugar is over 100, then you're part of the metabolic syndrome. If you have a cluster of these, not just if you have one, but if you have a cluster of these. And then, of course, triglycerides, 150 or higher, because 149 is considered normal. And then your HDL cholesterol, which is the good cholesterol. Now, I don't know if you guys understand the difference between good and bad cholesterol. So bad cholesterol, LDL, is the stuff that clogs the drain, right? So it's in the vessels and it's just clogging everything up. That's the stuff that gets stuck to the wall. That's the stuff that causes the lumen to get smaller, so blood can't get through. So that's the bad cholesterol. And the good cholesterol essentially goes into the vessels and it gobbles it up. It's kind of like, I tell people, it's kind of like rotor-rooter. If your pipe is closed and rotor-rooter comes and it opens it up, that's what the good cholesterol does. So that's the difference between good and bad cholesterol. And so if you have not enough rotor-rooters, that is a risk factor for metabolic syndrome. Does that make sense why that would be? Because it almost doesn't matter if your vessels are clogged. If you have enough of these guys that are coming in and open it up, then I'm good. But even if I don't have a lot of clogging, if the clogging is slow, if I don't have people that are coming in and opening up the vessel, then I run into trouble. So having a low HDL or good cholesterol is a risk factor. And so for men, an HDL less than 40, or for women, HDL less than 50 is considered part of metabolic syndrome. And so those are the criteria, those are the risk factors. So why do we even care about metabolic syndrome or metabolic diseases? And we care because millions of people around the world are affected. Millions of people around the world are affected. It's a leading contributor to chronic illnesses, death, and disability, because it has a lot of downstream complications, as you guys know, right? So we're talking about heart disease, death. We're talking about kidney dialysis, blindness, non-traumatic limb amputations. We're talking about infections. We're talking about significant cost. We're talking about loss of function. We're talking about depression, because people who have chronic diseases can get depressed, particularly if they are less mobile. Having high blood sugars, having uncontrolled blood sugar is now being associated with dementia. Right? The term type 3 diabetes is being thrown around. And it is often preventable and manageable with lifestyle changes. So if you go back, I don't know, 100 years. Let's start there. 150 years. The people who died, or people who had significant metabolic or significant lifestyle changes when it comes to disease, were people who got infections and they couldn't get a cure, or they didn't get treatment in time, or they had some trauma. You know, they fell, they hit themselves, they got into an accident, they fell off of something, and they broke something, they damaged something, right? Those were the diseases, those were the things that people died of and became ill. Fast forward now, and the things that we are dying from, the thing that's causing significant mortality and morbidity, is not the infection, is not trauma, but they are metabolic diseases. Diseases of lifestyle. And does that make sense? I want you guys to follow. Now, I want to hasten to say something. I almost don't like the phrase lifestyle diseases. And the reason I don't like them, or like it, is because we typically stop there. For example, that's why insurance companies find it difficult to pay for certain medications. For example, the GLP-1s. You've got to go through hoops to get those paid for, when they are medications that work. There are people who discount, berate people who take GLP-1s because they say, oh, they're taking the easy way out. So when we use the phrase lifestyle diseases, it almost sets up a connotation of, well, you are on your own. You go take care of that yourself. You, right? And that is true, but we discount the effect that all of the other things are having. And that's why I always use that example where I ask people if you hold their breath. Hold your breath as long as you can. I'll give you $1 million if you can hold your breath for 10 minutes. Yeah. And when they breathe, I say to them, well, why did you breathe? They said, well, I had to. I said, no, you didn't. You decided you weren't going to. I said, well, I needed oxygen. Well, so are you a weak person because you needed oxygen? Do you not have moral character because you breathed? No, you breathed because your body made you breathe. And as a guy who deals with hormones, right? I deal with hormones. That's my job. I understand, and I try to get people to understand that when the hormones are going, it's almost like trying to get somebody to hold their breath. And if we don't understand that, we throw this phrase lifestyle diseases out at people. We throw it around. And we inadvertently convince people that they're on their own. That's one of the reasons why New Year, New You is available. Because we want to change your mindset. We want to help you understand that yes, it can be done, but there are things in you that we've got to deal with in order for it to be done. And when we say lifestyle disease, we almost discount it and we say, okay, yeah, that's your job. That's your problem. All right. So that's why we care. That's why we care. So they're interconnected. They are interconnected. It's another reason why we care. Metabolic diseases occur together. Example, metabolic syndrome. We just said that. Right? Central obesity, low HDL, high blood sugar, high triglycerides, all those things together. They travel in pairs. They have a shared risk factor. Obesity, for example, insulin resistance or hyperinsulinemia, sedentary lifestyle. So they tend to be together. So if we can fix one, there you go. There's that phrase, right? If we can fix one, if we know what to do for one, if we know what to do for the prototypic one, then we can extrapolate that to other things. Because, as you see there, the domino effect, and this is what I was mentioning, I think, to Steve earlier, that there are things that go on that all kind of compound against each other. Right? So one condition increases the risk of another, so that when there is something else going on in our metabolism, we get ill, we get infection, we get some inflammation, we get stressed, we don't sleep, then that throws the other things out of whack because they are interconnected. It's a domino effect. Okay? All right. So what is the role of hyperinsulinemia? One of the things that we talk about all the time when new people come to my office for diabetes, one of the points I always make to them is that diabetes is not a sugar problem. Diabetes is not a sugar problem. Diabetes or high sugar is a result of the problem. And the problem is hyperinsulinemia. That is more insulin than we need. Or more insulin than we should have. Let me say that, not that we need, because we need it. It occurs when the cells in the body become less responsive to insulin. Either we don't have enough, or the insulin that we make is not effective, or there's something blocking the insulin from moving. or blocking the insulin from working. We showed last week, I think, let's see, where was that? We showed the graphic of the insulin. There we go. We showed the graphic of the insulin receptor. Okay, so when insulin comes in, so that the white things that you see there, those are blood sugar or sugar molecules, and that flyy thing, the little flower-looking thing, that is insulin. And when it attaches to the receptor, the blob comes to the surface and it creates a channel, and then it sucks the white ball into the vessel or into the cell. So once again, white things, that's sugar, and insulin attaches to the receptor. The blob comes up, creates a channel, and you suck sugar into the cell. Okay, so you can see that that can go wrong in several places. The first thing that can happen is there's sugar in the vessels, but there's not enough of the insulin, right? So that would be one thing. Number two, maybe there are not enough receptors. Number three, maybe there's something blocking the channel from forming, that blob from coming to the surface, right? So all through that process, you can have different things that go on. And so hyperinsulinemia, or type 2 diabetes, is a hyperinsulinemic disease, and it occurs when the cell is not responsive to the insulin. And it's central in the development of metabolic disease. And we've talked at length for metabolic disease, or at length for insulin. Understand that insulin, because it is an anabolic steroid, it's an anabolic hormone. Its job is to store. And anytime you have something that's storing, anabolic, it's getting bigger. So cells are getting bigger. You're putting on weight. You're getting fatty liver. Your blood vessels become less elastic, or less compliant. Let me not say elastic, because that has a specific meaning. Less compliant. And so what happens is the blood sugar or blood pressure goes up because the vessels are stiffer. Right? So the role of hyperinsulinemia. So what are common symptoms? Well, fatigue, weight gain, frequent urination, high blood pressure. And often there are no symptoms until serious complications happen. So we're talking about metabolic syndromes across the board. One of the reasons I don't like pre-diabetes, the phrase, is that people think because I'm pre-diabetic, I don't have to worry. That is not the case, because pre-diabetes simply means that you haven't reached the criteria yet for being diabetic. And I don't know if I have it in this. Let's see. I don't think I have it in this this slide deck. But remember when we did the when we talked about the diagnosis of diabetes. Let me see. Let me grab that really quickly. When we talked about the diagnosis of diabetes, what we talked about was the differences between in the A1Cs. We talked about differences in A1Cs and blood sugar and fasting blood sugar and postprandial blood sugar and all of those. And so if you remember, and let's see, here we are. All right, so if you take a look at this graph or this diagram, we're talking about, if we talk about A1Cs, a pre-diabetic A1C is 6.4, and a diabetic A1C is 6.5. That is 1/10 of a point away from each other. So to say that if I'm 6.4, I don't have the complications that somebody with a 6.5 has is not true. That's why, so when we say pre-diabetes, people get kind of lulled to sleep. They think, oh yeah, I'm good. I don't have to do anything. And that's not the case. Okay. All right. But let's see. Okay, there we go. So often symptoms, so symptoms don't show up until you get serious complications. And then, of course, when we talk about diagnosis, right, the diagnosis comes by blood tests. For example, fasting glucose, fasting lipids, blood pressure measurement, waist circumference, and BMI. That's why we check BMI. That's why we look at BMI. And then how do we prevent and manage metabolic disease? I want you to think through the process of metabolic diseases. What are they? How do they work? Right? So when we did a show talked about DAMSIC, DAMSIC, right? Diet, activity, medication, sleep, inflammation, and cortisol effect, or DAMSAD would be another way of saying that. Right? So as we're talking about diet, so balanced bites. Balanced bites. Diet. Making sure that you are doing the things that you need to do, that you are watching, that you are preparing meals that are consistent with what you say your goals are, that are consistent with, so that your activities, the foods that you're eating, align with your destination. They align, so that, and here's the point. Here's the point I want to make. Right? So I never tell people that there is a food that they can't eat. Those words never come out of my mouth. Now, unless you're allergic to something or something like that, that's a whole nother conversation, right? But I'm talking about just food that, not food that's you're allergic to. I never tell people there's something they can't eat. What I tell them is they have to understand the effect of the food on their body and figure out what they're going to do to compensate for it. I want you to listen to me, right? And all the people that are out there that are listening right now, and the hair in the back of their neck is standing up, because what you're hearing me say to people is just eat whatever you want, and right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you have to understand what you need to do to compensate for what you're eating. Often, people eat a cookie, but they have no plan for what they're going to do with whatever comes from the cookie. And so you got to understand that, okay? So balanced bites. So balanced bites say, hey, whole foods, not a lot of processing, no added sugar, low protein, healthy fats, or lean protein, healthy fats, starchy and non-starchy vegetables, tasty food, flavorful. Make sure that you are portion controlled, okay? And then activity, right? Falls right into the New Year, New You, right? As a matter of fact, all of this falls into New Year, New You. That's why I have that New Year, New You logo down at the bottom. Medication, right? What medication should I be on? What medication should I not be on? Anything that is producing insulin in your body, or if you're taking insulin, the very first medications that I try to get people off are those medications. And then, because remember the pillars: decrease insulin. Number 2, suppress appetite. So any medication that's going to help suppress my appetite, that's one I want. That's why the GLPs are so amazing, because they help to suppress appetite. GLPs don't cause weight loss. Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, did I spill the beans? GLPs don't cause weight loss. GLPs suppress appetite, and the suppression of the appetite causes the weight loss. Hear me, everybody? So that when I talk to my clients, when I talk to my patients, what I'm helping them to learn is I'm helping them to learn what the GLP is doing. That's what New Year, New You is all about. To figure out how can I do the same thing that the GLP is doing, so that if I take the GLP away, I still have the benefit and I'm doing it myself. So simply taking the medication without learning, I don't think is the right place to be. You got to learn what to do, because here's the thing. You want to hear? Let me come closer. Somebody is having great success with GLPs right now. Amazing success. And down the road somewhere, they're going to have a side effect where they won't be able to take the medication anymore. Somebody is having great success right now with the GLP, And down the road, the insurance company is going to decide they're not paying anymore. Somebody right now is on a GLP, and financially, they're not going to be able to afford it down the road. My question is, when those things happen, what's the plan? I love GLPs. I prescribe them all the time. I love how they work. I think they are an amazing group of medications. I would give everybody who can tolerate it, who doesn't have any other issues, a GLP. That's how much I like them. But my question is, what happens if you can't get it? Like we had a shortage. I had people come into the office, they were panicking because they couldn't get the GLP. And my question to you is, what are you learning in the process? That's what New Year is all about. Right? The fasting that we're doing, suppressing the appetite, decreasing insulin, reducing sugar, the heat model, understanding what the triggers are. New year, new you. What do I need to do to set myself up for success? Getting good sleep, dealing with my inflammation through fasting, autophagy. See how that all is coming together? Dealing with cortisol, with the COPE model, clarifying, observing, pausing, having the ability to break the hijacking that's going on with the amygdala so that my prefrontal cortex takes over. So how do we deal with metabolism, metabolic diseases? That's how we deal with them. And so what's our takeaway? Our takeaway is this. Number one, metabolic diseases are interconnected and manageable. They are interconnected and manageable. One affects another, affects another, affects another, and I can make a difference. That's the whole idea behind unlimited potential. That's the whole idea behind unlimited potential. That we have the power. There was a show back when I was growing up. What was it? He-Man. You guys remember that? By the power of Grayskull, I have the power. You remember, guys? Remember that? Right? The power's in your hand. So that's how we deal with it. We prevention and management revolve around healthy lifestyle changes. That's right, I used it. Although I railed against it a little while ago. Because you now understand when we say lifestyle changes, you understand what we're meaning. We're not meaning you go do it on your own. We understand that when we in this community are talking about lifestyle changes and lifestyle diseases, we understand that there are hormonal things that we've got to deal with, stress things we've got to deal with, sleep, anxiety, depression. We understand that there are food triggers that we've got to deal with. And so we're not throwing you overboard and say, okay, just swim. We're saying, okay, how do we walk along with you as we move in the direction of better metabolic health? So lifestyle changes. And then you can take charge of your health right now. Right now. You'll hear as we get into the new season, we'll talk about limitless living. Limitless living, meaning that I have in my hand, I have within my grasp, I have within my resources what I need to tap into the potential of charting the destiny for my health. Limitless living. You've heard us talk about unlimited for this entire year. And unlimited says that I can live a limitless life. I'm only limited by the education I have, the mindset, the vision I have, the way I look at things. I'm only limited by the tools that I've learned and only limited by the community that supports me. There it is right there. But within your grasp, right now, you can make a change. You can make a decision at this moment. And you can say, okay, I'm not going out like that. I'm not doing the things I've been doing. I'm not doing it like I've been doing. When you make that decision, when you've committed to that, and you have a structure within which you can work, within you can function, all you've got to do is work the plan, work the structure, work the path. And if you do that, then the process of managing metabolic diseases becomes much simpler. Much simpler. And you have much more success. Awesome, awesome. I love it. So let's go ahead, and I think I see, hey, Gian, come on. How are you doing? Glad that you're here. We talked about you a little earlier. We were hoping that you would join us. So let's hop over and let's take a look at, let's see, where are we? I think we read, Steve says point 2, so we're going to look at that just a minute. Gian said, when I don't have appetite, I'm eat because I'm anxious with no food, so I can't make fasting. I have stronger habits than eating by time. Habits to eat lunchtime, so strong, so the time lunchtime comes around, I eat. I can't overcome it, so I end up eating, but I really want to make it fast. I want to fast. So let's pause there for a second. Okay? And so I want to address that for everybody. I want you to understand that the fasting is a process. And I know I keep saying that, but I'm going to keep saying it. Fasting is a process. It's going to take time. It's going to take understanding what the things are that are pushing us to break the fast. And that we have been given, we've given that by the HEAT model. Habits, emotions, access, and taste. Habits, emotions, access, and taste. Now, let me give you an example. All day, if I'm in the office, I can go for the entire day without eating. So for me, fasting during that period, not an issue. So when I go to bed at night and I wake up in the morning and I go to the office, I don't think about food until it is food time, lunchtime. And I have 2 struggles during that time. The first one has nothing to do with being hungry. But at lunch, my team gets up. I see my wife come out of the office. She goes to the kitchen. She warms up her food. I smell it. I know it's lunchtime. And I don't have anything to do at lunch. Like at lunch, unless I have a meeting or I'm giving a talk, or I'm, or even if I have a meeting with my wife, because we do our administrative discussions during lunch sometimes. While I'm there, if I'm not eating, she's eating. So it is the routine that happens. Okay, that's number one. The second time that I have issues is right now. Because when I get off here, when I finish here, I'm gonna do a few things here in the in the studio. And then I have nothing to do. I should say I have nothing to do. Where I'm going to hang out with the family, talk with them. My son's going to be on his device, and I'm going to try to talk with him, and he's going to be talking to his friends, and he's, I'm the old guy, and he's trying to do his thing, right? So, or my wife is doing her thing. And so this time is a difficult time for me because it's now boredom. So one is emotions and habits. One is habits, lunchtime. The next is boredom. And those are my 2 times. So for all of us, we've got to understand what is it that is driving us. It is given by one of those 4 things: habits, emotions, access, taste. Or maybe they're just food around us. Or there's something that the food is doing. And so if we could find that, then we begin to have some power over being able to manage. Okay? All right? So I just want to make sure that I say that. Like Gian said, the habit is to eat lunch. And so that is strong. And that takes time to break it and put something else in that space, right? Because as soon as you see somebody go to lunch, your brain is going to say it's time to do that. So what I would recommend is find someplace else, find something else to do, find some other people to hang out with, right? So find another activity. I had a friend who was fasting, I think it was last week, and I sent him a message. He said, hey, I'm getting through the fast. I said, make sure you're busy and hydrated, right? Busy and hydrated. Okay. Cornelia says, I do, and I'm trying to see what... Cornelia, if you had a question, put that again. Steve said, Jay-Yoon, can you eat supper around 5 p.m.? So sad I had a strong habit to eat. Any tips? I usually OMAD 12 p.m. noon. This noon time makes me eat. Okay, so you're doing one meal a day. How about changing it from one meal a day to 2 meals a day for now? Two meals that are relatively close to each other, right? So right now it sounds like you're doing a 23-1 essentially, right? You're eating one meal a day. And so you're fasting essentially for 23, 24, almost 24 hours. So instead of doing one meal a day, make it 2 meals a day, but put those meals relatively close to each other, maybe within 4 hours of each other. Once you're able to do that, then compress the eating time, or even make it start out with a longer time, right? So maybe you'll do 8 hours between the 2 meals. But start somewhere, and then once you're better at that, and you put some things in place, then begin compressing the time. Okay? Because it's as long, in addition to being a physical thing, it's also a mental thing. Okay? So Steve says, Jae-yoon, just look at fasting as saving your life. Jae-yoon said, I'm very anxious over noon with no food. Teresa, Jae-yoon, have you tried drinking water? Great, Teresa, great idea. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay, have water with you and drink water. Pamela says, maybe work on a hobby around lunchtime. Right, there you go, Pamela, staying busy. Cornelia said, I was just saying I remember He-Man. That's right. He-Man and She-Ra, right? Remember his sister? He-Man. Castle Grayskull. Man, I remember that. So awesome. All right. So let's take a look. Hey, let's take a look at my ketones. Right? So Steve said he thought my ketones were gonna be 0.2. So where is... Let me grab my app. Get over here. And so let's go ahead and pull that out. So when I broke my fast on Friday, my blood sugar was 68 and my ketones were 2.7. So let's go ahead and turn that on. And let's go ahead and sync. And drum roll, please. Drum roll. Da, 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 da. And it is 134 for glucose and 0.3 for ketones. 0.3 for ketones. So remember, for ketones that are less than 0.5 considered normal, 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and then above 1.5 considered therapeutic ketosis. And so right now I'm in the normal range. If we look at the actual graphs, you'll see the tan line, that's blood sugar. Turquoise line is ketone. So as my blood sugar went down, ketones went up. And then as my blood sugar went up, my ketones go down. So blood sugar is the driving force, by the way. So it's not that the ketones went up and forced the blood sugar down. It's that the blood sugar went up, insulin came out as a result of the blood sugar, and that is what brought the ketones down, right? Because remember, ketones and insulin cannot exist in the same space. Okay, awesome. All right, great, 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 great. All right, so so next week we'll come on and we will. Next week is going to be our show where we discuss some interesting things about your days that are coming up ahead. So we're gonna have some fun with that. That's good. That's one of my favorite discussions because I want to spend some time giving you some thoughts, some resources. I should say resources, some thoughts, and some hacks, some tricks, some tips on how to approach the days that are coming up soon, because people have some difficulty in some anxiety as it comes around to holiday times and birthdays and anniversaries. And so we're going to spend some time talking about that. All right. Remember that you have unlimited potential, limitless living, which is what we just talked about. Want you to make sure that you are thinking about balanced bites. Every bite counts. So you are going to fuel your body with balanced bites, with those things that are consistent with what you want to do in terms of your metabolism. Remember our pillars: decreasing insulin, decreasing insulin, suppressing our appetite, and reducing sugar. Those are the pillars for diabetes. And the things that we do, all of the potential that we have, we're able to access that with the Triple E formula for success. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. When you come to the show, or when you're in the space, or even as you're out there, go ahead and make sure that you join the challenges. Those are your opportunities to begin learning and doing and putting to practice what we're discussing. We encourage you, when you come, get in there and do those things. Those are what the challenges are about. We empower you with those challenges, right? We empower you to take charge of your health and your life. And then we want you to invite somebody here to the space. Let us know what's going on in your story. Tell your story. Tell us the successes you're having. Tell us the challenges you're having. So, Gion, thank you for letting us know. Let us be a part of your journey. Right? And thank you all, by the way, for everyone who's been giving advice and sharing tips and tricks. Thank you all for that, because that is how the community grows and how the community becomes successful. And then invite somebody. Let them know that there's a space that they can come where there's no judgment, because we're all in the same boat. There's no judgment. There is no pressure. There is no pressure other than the pressure that we all want to bring to each other as we move into the space. Okay? So this is not pressure like, oh, you should be doing better. This is pressure like, come on, let's go. We can do this. Right? Limitless living, unlimited potential. So invite them, let them know that there's a space where they can come and they can begin setting themselves up for success. And have them come, because we're so New Year, New You is here. New Year, New You is continuing, because it's not just a New Year, New You. It's a forever New Year, New You, right? But we are going to be adding to, expanding. You've already heard me start talking about some of the components, right? So balanced bites, limitless living, all of those are ways that we are going to enhance what we're doing here in this space. So you want to get ready, because it's coming. But like I always say, I'm glad to be here, glad to be with you, glad to be able to spend some time. We will be doing our check-ins later on this week, so make sure you join us for those on Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Friday. We have on Saturday at 9 p.m. Central, video from the vault, and then on Sunday at 6 a.m. Central, we'll have This Week in Review, and then next week, we'll be right back here with Dwain Woode, MD, live at 7 p.m. Central. Thank you for being here. This is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Woode with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, New Year, New You. Thanks, everybody. Good night. We'll see you at our next show.